Hi, welcome to week 2 of the Adrenal Reset program. Today we are going to be covering everything to do with nervous system and how it affects our adrenal glands. We're going to cover different states of the nervous system. We're going to cover what impacts the nervous system specifically in regards to trauma, things like that, and how to start to identify and create some safety around symptoms in the body. So we've got some exercises. It's going to be a really good session. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So let's get rolling. So part of healing our overall system, when we regulate our nervous system, our body actually begins to heal. So think of our nervous system. So the nervous system and the adrenal glands are best friends. They work in tandem. You can't separate them. But when you're looking specifically at the nervous system, really it governs all of the function because it's the communication highway between the brain and the body. And so when our body is out of whack, our system is sending false messages or messages of danger up and down, back and forth again and again. And so when we regulate the nervous system, we are able to start to bring homeostasis back into the body. We're able to communicate safety back to the body. And so some of when a nervous system is dysregulated, some of the acute symptoms, so the symptoms that just come up for us in more of a sudden situation would be like dilation of the pupils. So if you remember from last time, when our pupils dilate, they go wide, and they do this so that they can bring in sensory information. It's trying to take in and scan the environment as much as it can to create to gather all the information to know, am I safe? Is there any dangers out there? So if you're in a state where your pupils are chronically dilated, it's a massive indication that in the moment you are in activated nervous system state. Excessive sweating, when your heart rate starts to increase, our digestion starts to slow right away. We're not going to feel hunger pains, things like that, because it's not a priority for our body to keep us safe. It's not thinking about digesting food. When we start to have anxious or worrying thoughts, if we have like an increased surge of energy, that will come alongside when our heart rate starts to elevate because it's trying to give us enough energy to get out and flee from a situation. It's a very primal response to a nervous system state when it senses a threat. Waking early in the morning, having a hard time falling asleep at night, some of those things, that can fall into some of the chronic symptoms too, but that is one thing that can be a real indicator of like an acute nervous system stressor. Now, when it moves to more of a chronic state, what you'll see is that tense pupil. So that pupil will start to dilate down and get really narrow. The eyes will actually water. You'll have increased gastric juices. You can have difficulty breathing, so it can feel really tight in your chest. The heart rate can slow all the way down, so you'll see actually low blood pressure with that as well. Chronic anxiety, constant fearful thinking, emotional overwhelm, even depression can come in this more of a chronic state. Digestive issues start to stem because that digestion starts to shut down, so we're not actually processing the food in the same way. So you'll get a lot more gas and bloating, calling on the parasite kingdom to break down food for us, all sorts of issues. You can get muscle aches, tension, headaches can pop up. Autoimmune conditions are really connected to this chronic nervous system state of being in an activated and then going into like a shutdown state. Fatigue is going to be like your telltale sign again. Now, there's different parts of our nervous system here, but our nervous system essentially, it picks up on millions of information messages going on around us. So remember how we were talking about the pupil dilating? Well, our nervous system is actually picking up this sensory information around us all the time. So we have all this input coming in, and then it's sorting through and deciding what's dangerous, what's not. Now, what happens then is our sensory neurons, they pick up this info, our organs pick up this info, and so it then responds, it decides what to do with it. So they send information to the brain and the spinal cord. Now, information, So when the nervous system decides to send it out to muscles, glands, and organs, it then responds in that way. So you're going to see like energy charge to the muscles, blood starts pumping to all of these organs that are vital for getting up and moving and running from danger. So from there, basically, what we see, I'm just going to switch here. So we have three different states basically of the nervous system. So the central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. So think about it like if you've ever seen the diagram of like the brain and then the spine goes down like this. So literally at the base of our brain, our vagus nerve connects and sends and follows down through the spinal cord. Now, our peripheral nervous system is that sensory nervous system, so what we would call somatic. So it's picking up on all these different things. So it's basically the nerves that send out from our spinal cord and our brain going down. It then branches out, it touches all of our different organs and glands. And it also is perceiving things around us. And so it's picking up that information and bringing it back through, back up to the brain. And so think about peripheral nervous system as our voluntary movement. So when we're picking up information, so say right now, Michelle, you're drinking from your cup. You are using this somatic system, this peripheral nervous system, without even realizing that you're doing it. You thought, oh, I'm going to have a drink. Well, your body responds to that, right? It goes and it picks it up, takes a sip. This is using that movement, right? Now, our autonomic nervous system is different. This is more of that sympathetic, parasympathetic. And so it has these two different branches. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest. Now, this is a state where we know that we're safe, we can stay calm. Our sympathetic is our fight and flight. So that's the one that activates when it thinks, hey, there's danger. Now, this system, and we'll get into that a little bit later, this system can start to get false information. It can start to perceive things as threats even though they're not, and we'll start to see different responses in the body. Those acute symptoms can come up even when it's not a true threat. And some of those chronic symptoms very much can be hardwired on a faulty belief system that something is going to happen, something bad. And so one of the exercises that we can do to kind of bring in safety in this sensory system in our body, the peripheral nervous system, is to do this exercise where we focus on tasting one thing. What can we taste? What can we smell? What can we feel? What can we hear? And what can we see? So I'd love to do that together right now, just so you can get an actual felt sense of what this is, to pull in all of our senses. So we don't necessarily realize that when we're pulling in sensory information, that even a smell can trigger something back. So I don't know if you've ever had the kind of situation where maybe you've had a difficult situation in the past and at the time something happened. Say something was burning in the house, there was a massive reaction to it, it caused a blowout. And right away, if you smell that smell, it will bring you right back to that memory. Well, what we are actually doing is we're going to rewire that to safety. And so we're going to pull on all of our senses and we're going to pull positive things in. And so if you want to close your eyes with me, what we're going to do, actually, no, keep your eyes open. That's okay. So let's just place our feet firmly on the ground and rest our hands on our legs and just get comfortable. If you feel more comfortable closing your eyes in the beginning, that's okay. But at the very end, we are going to open our eyes. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on what's something that you taste right now? What's one thing you can taste? And if you breathe in deeply through your nose, what's one thing that you could smell? Now, feeling with your feet or your hands, what are two things that you can feel? Maybe it's the ground beneath you. Maybe you can feel your shirt resting on top of your skin. Maybe it's your back pressed against your chair. Now, if you tap into what you can hear, what are two things you can hear around you? Maybe you can hear birds chirping. or a car driving by. Now, if you have your eyes closed, go ahead and open them. And what are 3 things that you can see? Now, I want you to just tap into how your body feels. Do you feel a little bit calmer? Maybe you gave like a big sigh. This is a massive indicator that your nervous system is settling. It feels a little safer. Maybe your muscles are starting to relax a little bit and you're starting to sink into your chair. So this exercise is it's so useful for moments when you are feeling anxious or quite activated. It's a really powerful way to bring yourself back into your body. And it's bringing safety in with it. And so when we're tasting and smelling and feeling things, we're actually wanting to feel for things, that bring us a little bit of comfort. You're looking for things that are like, oh, that's really cool. When you're hearing noises, you want to start to go, maybe you can hear something really close to you, but you actually want to start to even tap into how far out can I hear? One of the things I love to do with that is when I'm in the forest, I love to hear how many different birds I can hear. Because normally I would hear birds chirping, but I wouldn't actually pay attention to which ones are close, which ones are far away, which ones sound like different birds. Are they the same? You can get pretty creative with it. And when you're looking for things to see, you really want to draw in on something that brings a lot of warmth to you, a lot of comfort. This is something that you can do when you're out in public and feel a little overstimulated. You don't have to go through every sense. If you have just a couple that really resonate with you.
Is the Coke cold?
And yeah, it's just a powerful way to start to connect to safety in the environment and bring it inwards and start to regulate our body a little bit. And we want to pay attention to those signals and symptoms of, oh, I feel better. I feel a little calmer. Maybe it's a little bit of like a tingling sensation that you notice. These are really, really cool things to pay attention to. So that practice, you can do that for as long as you want to. You can pull in as many things as you want to and do it as quickly. And no one would even know that you're doing it, which is why I love exercises like that, is that you're just in your own little zone creating safety within and nobody needs to know. Oftentimes we experience anxiety and we think that it's so obvious to other people, but no one would know. And then at the same time, it's like there may be like oh, would somebody know if I was doing this? But no, they would never know. And so it's such a powerful resource in the moment. Now, there's something called a vagal break. And so basically, when we breathe in, we activate this vagal brake. And when we breathe out, we release it. And so kind of like what we were doing before with noticing, oh, I started to relax, it was a form of releasing that vagal brake. But one way that we can start to hack into this is with our breath. Now, breath work, there's all sorts of different breath. But I want to do an exercise together where again we start to practice what this feels like. What's the felt sense of this in our body? And when can we utilize this? So again, stay in that planted position with our feet on the ground. And I want you to close your eyes. Rest your hands on your lap. And now I just want you to practice breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, okay? And we're going to go in for 4, out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to move into 1 to 2 breathing. So we're going to breathe in for 4 and out for 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now for this last round, I want for you to breathe in, and as you're exhaling out, I want for you to feel like you are dropping all your stress, all your worry, everything down on the ground. Just let it sink all the way through your body. So in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, can you feel the difference of breathing in when it lifts you up and out how you just relax and kind of melt into the ground? The difference between 1 to 1 breathing and 1 to 2 is that vagal break. Now, when we want to bring activation, if you're in a really hypo state, you actually want to increase and you want to raise yourself up. So doing that even breathing 1 to 1, so in for 4, out for 4, that is a way that you can start to lift yourself up. If you're in an activated state, you want to relax. So you want to actually release that break, and we want to calm the system down. And so you can continue to do that in for 4, out for 8. And every time you breathe out, just focus on relaxing more and more and more. And it's a really practical way to regulate your nervous system again and bring that vagal break back into regulation. Oftentimes we can be stuck with that vagal break in the wrong position, and we're just like all the time. And so simply just tapping into our body and physically going, okay, where am I feeling stress? How can I start to release this? And just keep doing it until you feel like you've laid it out. And then pay attention to how good you feel in your body. Again, we're wanting to tap into that somatic experience. So you want to feel what it feels like in your body to feel calm so that you can have awareness. When your body's in more of an activated state, it goes, oh, I know what to do. Okay, we're going to bring some calm here now. I'm a massive fan of having these like quick go-to actionable steps for you to use throughout the day for moments, because we all live busy lives. We all have a lot of things on the go. We wear a lot of hats. And so we don't always have the opportunity to stop and do 20-minute breath work. I love to have a routine in the morning where that's a part of our practice so that we're really building resiliency in our nervous system. But resiliency also comes with teaching yourself how to regulate in the moment as well. And so becoming aware of our state, recognizing when we're feeling really flat or recognizing when we're feeling really anxious. Sometimes we can be so disconnected from our body and the state of where our nervous system and our adrenal glands are functioning at that we just kind of keep going on autopilot. And when we can tap in, we really have so much influence on the state of our nervous system and how we do throughout the day. There's way more opportunities for us to do this. One of the things I practically used to do is when I had to work a really busy job and I was scheduling. Scheduling for me, it was a job that was done at the end of the day. I'd already worked a full day. Michelle, you do know about this. And for me, one of the things I started practicing doing was I would give myself 3 appointments I would schedule, and then I would put everything down and I would do an in and a deep out breath. And it was just a thing, and I would finish with just smiling. It was just part of the thing that I love to do, where it was like, oh, I feel really good. And then I would just smile and I would feel how good it felt to smile. And it was so regulating for me because it got me out of that chronic, like, just go, just push through, just keep working, just get it done. And it allowed for me to just have a moment where it was like, no, I'm going to tap in. I'm going to make sure I feel regulated enough. And it actually allowed for me to kind of keep tabs on how far I was willing to allow my nervous system to get jacked, because There is this part of us sometimes that just goes, well, I'll just get it done. And we push so far past our boundaries and so far past our capacity that really we're self-abandoning when we do that. And so it's reteaching our nervous system, I'm going to tend to you, I'm going to take care of you. And so sometimes some of the symptoms that you can see, so when we're talking about vagal tone, we are talking about the vagus nerve that runs down the spine. And so some of the symptoms are going to be that we can pay attention to is going to be like anxiety, fear, emotional overwhelm. Are we feeling like, oh, I'm on the verge of tears right now? Or, oh, I feel so frustrated and angry right now. Like I'm just kind of can't settle. These are huge indicators that our nervous system is being hijacked. If we're feeling flat and low, this is also an indicator, and that can be really hard to actually be in touch with because when we're depressed, we can be so dissociated or we can feel so numb to a lot of things. So it's a really important area to pay attention to as well. Digestive issues, again, chronic pain, inflammation in the body, aches and muscle tension, autoimmune, all of these things that pop up in our nervous system states, they're showing us that our vagal tone is not working great. Now, another form of breath work that's really, really healthy for training vagal tone is going to be our working on our heart rate variability. And so it's basically our adaptability to stress. So when we do coherence breath work, it's breathing in for 5.5 counts and breathing out for 5.5 counts. And this actually helps to build communication between all of our organs and glands and our brain. And so for whatever reason, that rhythm is like sets our internal clock. And so that's one way that we can also work on this heart rate variability, this vagal tone. And so heart rate variability essentially is the variation between our heartbeats. We want to see variation between them. We don't want just a consistent rhythm. It means that we actually don't have great adaptability to stress. There's a lot of tension in our nervous system. And so we want to see variation between the beats. And the way that we do that is we move out of that rigidity and we start to create flow by getting in that breathing cycle. And so I can send you the resource if you like for that breath work. There's a really good video where you can follow along. Now, a massive connection to adrenal fatigue, autoimmune, all of these things is trauma. And so when our body is in activation, it can either get stuck in hyperarousal or hypoarousal. Now, often what will happen is when trauma happens, we will have an experience and it floods our body with energy. And when this energy comes, the body essentially has so much and it doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't have the resources to deal with it. It literally gets paralyzed and stuck in the body. And so then you'll find that this system is just locked and loaded. So this can happen outside of trauma. This can happen from chronic stress. Absolutely chronic stress. Certain personality tendencies can really drive some of those things, but trauma is a massive contributor to this. So when our body experiences something that feels too overwhelming for us to be able to emotionally process through or to release in our body, if we have the tools or somebody that actually can guide us through of like, you need to actually go discharge this energy from the body, like go have a hard workout, go for a run, go for a walk, do something to move it out of your body, have a good cry, process these emotions. Most of the time we are raised by caregivers that are learning how to handle their own emotions in the first place, or they don't necessarily have the tools to handle trauma. And so we've had these experiences that felt overwhelming to our system, did not get processed, and they end up stuck and trapped in there. And so then we end up feeling like we're stuck in this chronic anxiety loop. And so when this goes to like an extreme state, the body will end up in like severe symptoms where it's like chronic panic attacks, all sorts of heart palpitations all the time, all sorts of symptoms will come up, and you'll definitely be seeing a lot of that chronic pain, autoimmune, all those things really stem from a lot of that. Now, animals in the wild, when they have a threat, so if you ever watch those like African safari things, basically when a predator comes after them, they will run. Some of them will play dead, they'll drop dead, but a lot of them will run. And what happens is if they get away, even if they get mildly attacked, but they survive, what happens is they go into this state where they start to shake and discharge energy. And so they'll actually do it for several minutes where there has been all of this activating energy to keep them safe. So their body did the same thing, has the same safety mechanism in there. pumps the body, it gets a heart rate going, all the energy and adrenaline goes to your vital organs and to your muscles so that you can move and go. Well, they start to discharge that so they can get rid of it. They're not doing an emotional processing, they're not wired that way. And so they shake and they get rid of it and they move out of that activated state and back into regulation and they carry on. Now, for us, it is very rare that we are taught to do that, to actually shake and release that energy, but our body will naturally do it. Have you ever noticed when like you get really nervous and all of a sudden you start to like shake? This is our body actually trying to discharge energy. Now, emotional processing is actually going to do a lot of that emotional release as well. Um, so with this, a healthy nervous system has flexibility to oscillate between these states, primarily landing in rest and digest. So this means that we have the tools and the resources to not only emotionally process what happens, but also know what to do for a physical release. Do I need to literally go for a run right now? Do I need to go discharge some of this energy? You know, men sometimes actually do this really well. If they feel like frustrated or angry, they're like, I need to go hit something. I need to go to the gym, right? Like they just have this natural, innate ability to know they need to get rid of the energy they're feeling. Women, we often tend to internalize and hold emotions and we end up suppressing, which is why there's a study that just came out, or it was a podcast or something by Gabor Mate, who's like amazing in the trauma field. He said the rate of autoimmune in women is so much higher because the amount of emotional suppression. We don't have that same masculine energy where we get into that aggressive state and release. And so much more gets held internally and it comes up in symptoms in the body. We're not meant to suppress. We are meant to discharge the energy that we feel. We are meant to feel our emotions. We are meant to literally get rid of energy when it's pent up and too much. And so some of the ways we can also do this is literally like grabbing a pillow and screaming into it. If you're alone in the car, like go and just scream, like scream and let it out. It's a really, really healthy way to process and release emotion. Um, Oftentimes we don't do this and then it comes out on the people that we love and it can create a bit of a shame cycle for us. And so really learning what are the healthy primary ways that we can start to release emotion and not allow it to stay trapped in our system and come out as symptoms later on. So PTSD, there's something called big T traumas and little T traumas. Now, big T traumas are going to be those big, massive events that happen in life, you know, the terrible things that we hope that nobody ever walks through. There's also little T traumas. So these are the little things that happen that we, until we become adults, we actually don't have the capacity to cognitively understand the experiences that we've had. And so when we have little experiences that are like a little shock to our nervous system, when you compile them and stack them, they can become as big as a big T trauma effect in our life. And so people that stay stuck in certain working environments that are really stressful, compacting, going to work day after day where it's stressful and it's high performance based, or it is, you know, you have a stressful boss or whatever that looks like. There's just unhealthy work dynamics. When you walk into an environment and you feel like, huh, all the time, you're putting yourself in this state again and again and again, unknowingly having an effect on the body. And so this is one way that we can start to understand and have compassion for ourselves if our body is stuck in this state. If we have had a series of things that don't quote unquote seem big enough to warrant saying, oh, I've had a traumatic experience or my body's experiencing trauma. Most people, we will minimize our experiences because someone else has walked through something bigger, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes these little traumas that stack on top of each other can have just as much of an impact. And so really leaning in with compassion, really leaning in with curiosity and going, okay, what is it that I have experienced? What is my body speaking to me that felt overwhelming? Because you can have multiple people in the same home experience the same thing, but process it differently and have a different experience within their nervous system. And so it's really important to, just go with curiosity and move with compassion. Now, there's something called an ACEs test, and it's a test that you can take online. And basically, it's like an adverse childhood experiences test where it will go through different experiences that you've had as a child. So if you experience abuse, dysfunction in the home, like really difficult communication styles, if there is emotional suppression, neglect, it doesn't necessarily need to be physical abuse for those things. And so kind of does this test where you can go through and go, okay, did you tick off a lot of these things? And really what it's linking it to is chronic health conditions. It's saying, yeah, you experienced a number of these things in your life. Your body, your nervous system has already been primed for chronic health issues. It's been primed for chronic illness. It is primed for an inflammatory state. Our thoughts create an acidic environment. It creates an inflammatory environment. And so if we're not emotionally processing, if we're not finding healthy ways to release things, we are suppressing, we're holding these things, and they come up in the body. And so yeah, it's one way that you can start to look into it. Obviously, going into support groups or seeing a counselor or finding a trusted, healthy-minded person that's done the work themselves, starting to do some of that processing and curiosity can be really, really beneficial. Now, when we're seeing chronic symptoms pop up in the body, like we've talked about, the body's in an activated state. It has unprocessed emotions. We're pushing past our boundaries, not necessarily taking care of ourselves. The body doesn't actually know that it's safe right now. And so remember how we were talking about perceived danger is different than an actual threat in the body. Now, when our body gets stuck in this state, it is creating a false symptom loop. So it is telling us, so say, back to that example of like, there was something burning in the kitchen and there was a whole thing that happened. And now when you smell this burning thing, this smell in the house, it brings you back to that memory. Your brain, your nervous system is trying to keep you safe. And it said, hey, when that happened in the past, that was unsafe. I need to remember this. Keep this noted. And so it literally gets this little like warning flag and it says, hey, something's up. Pay attention to this. Make sure you don't go near that again. That hurt last time. And so it's a loving safety response that has been wired into our body, but sometimes it can get out of whack. And so we really need to communicate safety back to the body. And that's the whole process of starting to do some of this somatic work and starting to do brain rewiring. And so there are two different ways that we can approach this. There's a top down or a bottom up. Now, top down is called brain retraining or brain rewiring. And so the idea is that there are neural pathways within the brain. And so think about this message of danger that has come again and again and again to keep you safe and remind you. Now it's created a neural pathway, so a thought pattern in the brain. And the more frequently this pattern is ingrained, the easier it is for your brain to go there. It's like you have your bushwhacking over here trying to make it up the mountain, or you have a clearly carved out path. It's naturally going to go up the path. It's going to be the obvious way to go. We are now going to start to forge away and clear a path amongst all the trees and all the bushes. And so it can be difficult work as you start to go into there and reroute and teach safety. But the benefit of it pays off tremendously. And when you create these new neural pathways, you're creating a positive dopamine response. When you bring in positive feelings, when you bring in positive sensory information, you're actually teaching your brain safety. Safety feels good. We actually want safety. The brain is not trying to take you back to fear. It's not trying to drive you there. It's just trying to keep you safe. But really, it needs to be shown that good things are there. Good things are available and there is safety around it. And so I hope that gives you a good visual of like literally you're rerouting and you're creating a new neural pathway. And one of the cool things is that as you start to focus down this path, it's like trees start to come back in and fill up that path. And so it's not like that pathway is always there forever and ever. It slowly starts to die off. And there's actual videos you can see of like neural pathways, new ones forming and old ones dying off. These little synapses, they look like little sparks that are like dying off and then growing here. So it's really, really cool. The words we speak, the things we focus on, they have power. And so taking every thought captive, when we recognize that there are fearful things happening within our system, when we have a fearful thought, it's literally taking it captive. It's going, oh, thanks for that, but no, thank you. I'm actually going to focus it over here. And so you're just gently guiding and moving in another direction. Now, somatic is bottom up. So that's that peripheral nervous system. So pulling in of all the senses. And there are many, many different ways. The one exercise we did today where we where we smelled and we saw and we heard all the different things. That's just one of like probably thousands of somatic exercises. There are so many ways to create safety in the body without actually having to tap into any sort of emotion, which for some people, if they're in a really dysregulated state, going straight towards tackling thoughts can be it can be a big task. And so going into body safety and learning how to really connect in with our body can be a really beautiful way of creating safety and communicating it from bottom up. Now, 90% of our messages go from body to brain. And so it's a really, really powerful way to create safety and to rewire our nervous system without again having to go into all of those fearful thoughts and highly emotionally triggering sometimes processes. And so I'm a massive fan of somatic therapy. I think that it's just a really beautiful, really connecting way to rewire that nervous system. Um, Creating safety around symptoms is so, so important. And so this goes back to a bit of brain rewiring, but creating safety around the symptoms. So for some people, anxiety might be the only symptom they were aware of when it came to nervous system dysregulation and their adrenals burning out. Maybe they're really tired and fatigued and they feel anxious, and that's kind of all they're aware of. But as you start to walk out this journey of really tapping into your body, maybe all of a sudden you start to go, oh, I recognize this, and I recognize this, and I recognize this. Now, what we want to do with this is we want to start to create safety around it. The understanding that there is a tremendous amount of capacity for our body to heal, and that our nervous system is simply confused. There is very real symptoms that happen in our body. Those symptoms are real, but the information that it's working with is not necessarily correct. And so creating safety around the symptoms can look like, hey, wow, I feel pain in this area right now. And perhaps for me, this is a chronic area that goes on and on. For me personally, I had a lot of back pain. And so part of doing this work of creating safety around my symptoms looked like, oh, I recognize this back pain. And instead of allowing the fearful pathway to be activated, and I go right down the train, and I took that train all the way out of town. Like I was like, oh, this is it. I'm maybe not going to walk. I can't bend over, da, 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 da. Like I took it so far because my nervous system was just trying to keep me safe. It was saying, hey, please don't do that big activity because that hurt last time. And now part of the invitation for me was to lean in and go, wow, okay, my nervous system is really afraid right now. My body actually knows how to heal. And the truth is, I really started to pull in true statements about either my body's capacity to heal or what was really going on in my body. And so for me, I understood that pain is actually just a signal that goes to the brain. So as much as I'm feeling pain, my brain is just perceiving the pain. And so I started to speak to that and go, wow, that's actually not necessary anymore. Thank you so much for trying to keep me safe. My body knows how to move. It knows what to do. And I'm going to show you that. And I just started to reparent and rewire these thoughts. And I created so much safety around it because what I found was that my world was actually going smaller and smaller. I didn't realize how confined I felt. I was in deep chronic symptoms, but for me, I didn't realize how isolating and how small I had created my world because I was trying to not feel any pain. I didn't want to feel anxiety and I didn't want to feel symptoms in my body. And so I just kept it smaller and smaller and smaller. And I needed to start to grow it bigger and bigger and bigger. And so to do that, I wasn't going to all of a sudden challenge everything in my mind. I had to start to build safety. And so I had to start to create a world that actually was safe around me. And so I had to talk myself into it. I literally had to go, it is safe for me to go on this walk. It is okay for me to do this. This is great. And if I felt like all of a sudden my body freaked out and it was having massive symptoms, it was like, hey, it's okay. I see you don't feel safe. That's okay. We're going to start again tomorrow. And I would give myself rest. And so, to kind of switch into like an anxiety example, that can look like, say you get um, social anxiety. Going into that situation doesn't mean that you put yourself there all night long. It doesn't mean that you go and you challenge yourself to talk to every single person in the room, but maybe you start out just speaking to one person at a time. And maybe you start to prime yourself for that situation and you praise yourself leaving it and go, wow, that was really great. Even if it didn't feel great, you go, wow, I did that and that's really cool. And then the next time you kind of move it a little bit further and a little bit further because you have now shown your nervous system there's safety in that thing. And I think that can be true for anything, any example in life. When we are challenging ourselves to do something new, we're oftentimes we go, oh my gosh, I don't know. Am I going to be able to figure this out? Is this going to be okay? This is just a more extreme example of that when anxiety is happening. It goes, oh my gosh, everything that's normally safe doesn't feel safe. Like, yes, of course, talking to people in a room is totally safe, right? Like, of course it is. But we've come to a place in our nervous system where it really is perceiving that things are not safe. And so we get the opportunity to rewire and teach it a new language and teach it new safety. And so that's exciting to me. I feel like it's really, really cool that we get and have that capacity to really build and create something new again. Um, Now, some of the programs that I have worked with and love and adore the principles behind them are in the realm of brain rewiring and somatic therapy. One's called DNRS, and it's strictly that brain top-down regulation. Gupta program is going to do some top-down, some bottom-up regulation. Somia International, this is going to be primarily working with somatic therapy, a lot of the emotional work with it. Like, love this program. I think it's so good. All of these programs are phenomenal, but that one specifically, I feel like is so well-rounded to deal with the emotional aspect of things too. And primal trust, this one too, really, really gets into a lot of those things. Builds a lot. All of these programs are going to help you to create safety in how we communicate to ourselves, how we start to break through some of these neural pathways and create safety in our body. And so it's just a resource for you to have. If any of that really resonated with you, there are programs out there that will walk you through in depth how to do this. And I too, one-on-one, can do this with you. Book recommendations. So these are just some of the books that I have read along the way that I found so powerful. So part of when I was challenging some of my beliefs and creating safety, I actually needed hard evidence. And so I started to learn a lot about this stuff. And so trauma, Peter Levine, Besser Vanderkolk, Gabor Mate, I mentioned him earlier, and Pete Walker. These are really, really well-known names within the trauma industry, and they have all sorts of resources. Hey, we're not restarting. Okay, we're going back. And so Waking the Tiger is going to teach you a lot about trauma. The Body Keeps the Score. That is a phenomenal, well-rounded book about nervous system, but it really dives deep into some big trauma stuff. And so if you're in a highly activated state, this is not a book for right now. This is one down the road when you have some more resilience. The Myth of Normal, really, really powerful. Complex PTSD, that's going to teach you a lot about those kind of compounding traumas in the life. Nervous system. So there's a few different people. They have some books on the nervous system. So Brittany Piper, she is phenomenal. I put these people actually down here so that you can follow them as well. If you're on social media, they're great on Instagram. They have all sorts of exercises, somatic exercises you can follow. Lots of information on the nervous system. So it's just free resources for you. But they've all created books as well. And so the Nervous System Reset is by a lady named Jessica McGuire. She's out of Australia. She's more kind of like, what would you say, vanilla? Like, she's not a lot of like emotion in what she teaches, but she's really good at explaining things. The Secret Language of the Body is by Jen Ham. I love her work. She's with Somia International. And then Body First Healing is Brittany Piper, and she is probably the best for information online. And so her book is great. And again, I would recommend giving them a follow online if this stuff is resonating with you. And so yeah, if there's any questions around trauma, please feel free to reach out. I hope this has painted a picture for you of the connection between emotional dysregulation in the body, our nervous system states, and really our adrenals from that are going to be in this activated state, pumping out cortisol, end up in this really taxed state. They're going to go hypo, and then they tank. They can't keep up with all the stressors. And so this is just a really powerful way that we can start to take the pressure and burden off of our adrenal glands, rewire our nervous system, and start to heal symptoms in our body. So thank you for joining, and please reach out with any questions that you have. Awesome. I'm gonna have to stop.